if you could go back to the 1970s? Remember that movie, Dennis Quaid, Frequency? An atmospheric disturbance lets Dennis Quaid talk to his dead father 25 years in the past. The film raised questions like, what would you take with you? What would you leave behind to help people back then? How would you influence their future? Well, my friend went back in time. He went there in a time machine. Apparently it can't take you to the future, but the machine can take you back about 40 years. Here's how the time machine works. He took a flight to the Cayman Islands, and he spent about 5 nights there. Now, remember audio cassettes? Jose told me he wandered the streets. There were no music blaring from cars, no mobile phones, no internet. Instead of tweeting and working on their smartphones, people were talking to each other. So how do you get to this Shangri-La? You fly to the Caymans, change planes, and take about a half-hour flight to an outer island. And you're flying into the past. Let me show you some photos that my friend brought back. This street runs east and west so that the late afternoon sun falls down on the faces of buildings. The old city is protected by UNESCO, and the architecture hasn't changed much in more than a century. My friend says he was transfixed, watching the facades of buildings changing shades of yellow and orange. It's not just the buildings that are stuck in time. When you go there, you'll see old cars, and there's no GPS. Think about what it was like to shop for food. Back then, there were no mega stores, and the whole concept of food is a lot closer to the earth. They eat what they produce, and they don't think about importing apples from Washington State or oranges from Brazil. Sugarcane is what he was drinking. And instead of YouTube, people read books. Stuck back in time, there's no Kindles, no ebooks. He told me about this writer's house that's now a museum. That's the desk, and that's the jacket that this guy used in the war. There's a lot of reverence for writing back in the 1970s. Jose even told me that he saw this old man's boat stored and up on a hill. Now, what would you bring back? Jose brought back some photos. These are some pictures that you can find of this writer on Obispo Street. And what would you leave behind? What could you give people in the 1970s to help them with their future? Jose said he left behind this strange device that we don't use here. It takes a camera chip and projects it on a TV. And then he took videos from YouTube and popped them on a USB drive. And so, if you could go there, what would you bring? Well, the government's a bit stiff about laptops. But you can bring ebooks. And with no cable TV, no smartphones, no internet, what do people do? Well, there are a lot of parks and some famous statues. Yeah, that's John Lennon. And neighborhoods are important. Street vendors sell on the corner, and there's grocery stores. And because there's almost no access to TV, you won't see satellite dishes. The show is in the street. So when you're looking north, the people on this island, they're locked in the 70s. They can see the ships on the horizon, but they can't travel. So I bet you're wondering, how did Jose do this? He went, you can too. So he arrived in the Caymans on March 2nd, and he went into the time machine, and they came back on March 7th. There's no stamp showing where he went. This is the view of the harbor. Jose said it's hard to believe that he made it back in one piece. He really thought about staying back there. As you can see, he flew from Miami to the Caymans, and then he flew back. And he hopes that you too will enjoy the time machine.